All right, welcome in. Just sitting here. I'm Joe Murray. It is Friday. We're wrapping up the week. I actually shaved today. I showered. I put on jeans. I have no plans, but I finally did something today. And we're wrapping up the week. I don't know. Maybe I'll go food shopping later, or I don't know, I'll do something to get out of the house if I feel like I look good. I feel good, look good. Maybe I'll do something good. But anyways, we're wrapping up the week. We've had a good one so far. We will wrap up the week today with Andrew Raycroft, the former Bruins goaltender over at Nessa. We'll bring him in just a minute here. Ton of stuff happening this weekend. We got the Jordan documentary, which I'm in on. I know the Ocho is showing some old time good stuff, like kind of like bodybuilding and eating championships. That's like right up my alley. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now I'll be on a podcast this weekend with Jay, Stu, and Sarge talking wrestling. So we are just sitting here. Of course, you can find all the shows on Spotify, YouTube, and on iTunes. Pretty good feedback from people what they like. Pretty much what we do here is we shoot the shit about sports, talk about your history, and then boom, we get into all the fun stuff. So without further ado, I'll bring in today's guest. His name is Andrew Raycroft. People know him as the Razor. Spent some time in Boston. We see him now on television on Nesson. What's going on, Razor? Welcome to Just Sitting Here.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I'm just sitting here, so it works out pretty well.
I don't know what else there is to do. So this is how it got started. I was like, all right, I'm trying to find this like video streaming program because everyone's using Zoom or something these days, and I'm like, well, if I'm just gonna sit here, I might as well bring someone in and talk about what's happening in the world and get to know them and shoot the shit. So I'm like, all right, why don't I bring in guys that I know that I think are fun? So we will do that today here on the show. I've been asking everybody this first question, though. We've all been stuck in quarantine. I think it's going to be going on 8 weeks next week. But if there's one former player that you could be quarantined with for 14 days, who would be that player?
I thought about it. I would love to. I wish Tiger Woods was a former athlete because he's right there. And I'm sure you're getting this answered a lot, and it's front of mind just because of the Last Dance. But MJ looks like that'd be a pretty good time. Have a few scotches with him, a few cigars, and hang out at his pad, not my pad.
That's true, because he's got that nice setup as we've seen on the documentary.
Yeah.
He's got the cigar always going, and he's competitive. Maybe he'd try to put on like rollerblades or indoors, and try to get a few past you. Go put on the pads. Would it be like a former teammate though? Like, is there a former teammate that maybe over the years that you really were like, man, I really got along with this dude and had a lot of fun? Like, is there a former teammate you think you'd like to be quarantined with?
Hal Gill, no question. Hal Gill, he was in my wedding party, one of my best friends, and we played together in Boston and Toronto. And I know we would have a lot of fun quarantined for 2 weeks. We would, the liver would be hurting by the end of the 2 weeks, but we would have a lot of laughs and jokes, even just the two of us together. The rabbit holes we'd go down. So Hal Gill, he's right there at the top of that list.
Is he one of the toughest guys? Because that's what he was known for, right? In Boston, the guy fought a lot, right? I mean, that's one of the things we not like PJ stock level or anything like that, but I remember sometimes he's gotten into some big brawls on the ice.
Yeah, he's a large human, and I remember him. He fought Char. He's fought a lot of big heavyweight guys, more so because of his size rather than his excitement for it. But he was a true pro and understood his role as much as anyone. That every once in a while, especially back in there you go. That's a Zdeno Chara right hook that caught him. But
really, that one right there.
Yeah, 100%. That is Zdeno Chara right there. I was 10 feet away from that, and the big boys were throwing hands, and the two biggest guys in the league. And we know exactly how hard Zdeno Chara's hand is. It's a cinder block, and Hal got cut with it.
All right. Well, let me ask you this: who the hell wants to fight Zdeno Chara?
I don't know. I wouldn't do it. You couldn't pay me. It would be like getting in a ring with Mike Tyson. There's not enough money to get me in the ring with those guys. And you still, even at the age of 42, I cringe when guys line up to him because you're one punch away from looking like Hal did.
But there are people who still try. They still want to. And somebody remember earlier this year, I think someone back checked him, right?
Yeah.
Right before the season ended. Someone like that was a cheap shot. Like that's the only way you can go at him, and I know he was fuming after that one.
Fuming. And I think guys, there's young guys that don't know enough because, most of that when Z was in his prime, that would have been 05, probably 04, 05. These guys were 6 years old. So there's a few guys that probably don't really understand how big and strong he is. They look at him, he's 42. I might be able to get an edge on him. And also they're aware that the refs jumping in a little bit earlier than they used to.
Now, do you think the game has changed though, like dramatically, where there's no use for that? And listen, I thought Sean Thornton was a good player, right? Could do a lot of things, but was somewhat of an enforcer. And maybe the Bruins this year were known as a team that didn't really have that kind of guy. They tried early on, but they didn't really have that guy. Is there still a place for that in the NHL?
There isn't. The games evolved really quickly in that respect. And again, 15 years ago, it was nightly. Their fourth line was three guys that could fight, and there's a great chance all three of them would every single night. And the reality is, there's a lot of people certainly here in Boston, and there's a few other markets across North America that really embrace that. The Broad Street Bullies in Philly, the Big Bad Bruins of the 70s and 80s, and in the old Garden, just the place was rocking every time. But the reality is to go mainstream, become a little more popular across the board, across North America, more highlights on ESPN is to get rid of the fighting and produce the skill and the speed of the game. And I understand there's a lot of people that do miss a good fight and miss some of that intensity at times, but I believe the reality is the game is better. The product is better for the overall consensus. If there isn't fighting and there's not gooning it up and that fourth line has a bunch of skill, it just makes the game much faster.
So speaking of that, and I want to get into some fun stuff, and people can chat into the show. So there's a comment feature. If you want to chat and ask any questions, you can certainly do that above. If you can look over my shoulder over here, actually right behind here, that's Lord Murray's cup. I made that. I love
that one. I recognized it right away.
All right, I made that. I found it in the trash at the radio station. I had to get it out of the trash. But that thing, like that, I thought they were going all the way. I thought I was going on a duck boat. Like Game 7 happened, and they're like, "Joe, you're going to do post game after the game," and I'm like, "All right, cool." And I don't want to say the Bruins didn't show up. They didn't. Okay, I'm going to say they didn't. But was that the difference in that series, though? Like, realistically, the Blues weren't as talented. They were bigger. They were more physical. But wasn't that what the Bruins were when they played Vancouver? It was like a complete flip the script. And I'm still not over that Game 7 from a year ago.
Oh, there aren't many people within 495 or New England that are over that game. And I was shocked that St. Louis was able to take the Bruins out with that style. I didn't think they'd be able to do that. They did a great job. And again, it's such a copycat league in the NHL that this moves. You recognize you still need that strength. You still need those big bodies in the game. That all being said, at the end of the day, it was essentially the first 10 minutes of Game 7. They weren't able to score. They had 3-4 great opportunities. Binnington made a couple saves. They missed a couple nets. And you get a bad line change at the end of the first period, and it's 2-0, and the game's over. So it's such a fine line in the league. If the Bruins had won, then we all would have said St. Louis was just too slow. And you go back to Game 3 and 4, like they just missed opportunities early in that series, and they lost 3 games at home. So you lose 3 games at home in a 7-game series, you're not going to win too many of those.
Home ice does mean nothing in the NHL. I will tell you that as a bettor.
You would know more than everyone.
But I fade it. It's like, all right, this team's at home, fade them, and it really doesn't mean it. Like maybe in the in the NBA, sometimes football, it means something. Definitely not in hockey, considering how there's been different champions almost every year, right? A lot of these guys just new teams come out of nowhere, and that brings up my next question here. Like, are you missing Stanley Cup hockey right now, and do you think there will be a season?
I'm massively missing it. Certainly, this is the best time of year as a hockey fan and someone now, kind of getting into the media side of it to be a part of these games is exciting now. It was last year, obviously, the run the Bruins went on. So I miss it as much as I miss everything else. I miss going to the bar and having a beer as much as I miss anything else. So we're all missing lots of things right now, and I get that. So, but no, I'm still optimistic. I am. I'm optimistic in the science. I'm optimistic in just the human spirit, I guess. But I think you see a lot of what the league's talking about, and at the end of the day, it's about dollars and cents. And the reality is, if they don't get these games in, owners are losing a lot of money, players are losing a lot of money. There's ways to get creative when everyone's losing money. It's amazing when you're up against the wall how you can get around ideas. And just the fact that Commissioner Bettman yesterday talking about not starting the next season until December, that's on the table. So when I look at that time frame, if they're willing to be that flexible and it seems like they're that motivated, that gives us, I mean, we've been doing this for 2 months. That gives us 4, 5, 6 more months of time to get this under control and have therapies or whatever it is to allow these guys to get out there. So those are the 2 reasons why I'm optimistic. Is 1, the motivation. There's a huge dollar figure there that they need to try and get money back. And 2 is there is a big timeline here. It's not a matter of trying to cram it in next week. They have all the way till December, which is 7 months from now.
Wow. Yeah, I hope they get it in, and I am interested in the creative ways that they can get it. There's a lot of smart people, and
yes.
To your point, people want to make money. I think they can get it done. So Andrew Raycroft joining the show today. I want to go back in your history a little bit. We'll have some fun with it. All right, it's fun, and I actually came up with an epiphany that I want to share at the end of this because I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately. There's one on Drew Bledsoe. I watched the 2003 ALCS with the Red Sox and Yankees the other night. Maybe I'll watch Game 7 again. I don't know if I want to put myself through that just yet.
A little early still.
Your buddy Josh Dolan already checking in.
Yeah.
What's up? But take us back. You grew up in Canada. You ended up playing in the OMHA and the OHL. Take us back to how the Razors started and how you got into hockey and everything like that.
All the way back to the OMHA days. I love it. It's I'm from small town Canada. Quintessential, exactly how you think about it. That's where I'm from. My dad's an insurance broker. My mom works at the bank, and we're small town. They grew up there. That's so hockey is what you do, and that's what we all did at a young age. My dad never played hockey. He never skated. I've never seen him pick up a hockey stick. So there was no fatherly passing, none of that. He was obviously the most supportive parents I could have had, taking me to every rink across Ontario. But there was never, hey, keep your stick on the ice. He could never tell me what I was doing wrong because he had no idea. So, but growing up, I just played, and we had a good local program, a few rinks, and I just played and kept playing, and it progressed. I was never a superstar. I was never a guy, a standout Ontario hockey player like a lot of guys I played against were, but I stuck with it and kind of hung around.
And then all of a sudden, did you think that this could happen? Like when the draft approached, I know you were drafted, I believe, 135th in '98, and I actually looked at that draft just to go back a little bit. Vinny Lecavalier was the number 1 pick that year.
Mm-hmm.
But Alex Tanguay, Simone Gagne, Scott Gomez, Mike Ribeiro was another guy that year. Brad Richards. I mean, some pretty good names in that draft. And then 135, Andrew Raycroft to the Boston Bruins. What was that feeling like for you?
Yeah, again, I was flying under the radar. To go back just a couple years from there, I was an OHL draft pick in Ontario Hockey League. I was 112th overall in all of Ontario. So again, not nearly expected in a year and a half from then to be drafted in the NHL, and then 135. The reality, you could go through that 5th round of that draft, and I bet you wouldn't recognize any other names. That 135 basically allowed me to go down and shake Harry Sinden's hand and have lunch with have dinner afterwards with everybody. And then they gave me a hat and a plane ticket. That was, the extent of it. That was all I was guaranteed, was to go to that first training camp. But I progressed, and obviously being drafted that day, I sat in the stands forever, but it was such a great feeling. I had met with Boston, and again, I was a small kid still. I was still growing. I was probably only 140 pounds, 150 pounds. But I interviewed well. At that time I was mature enough where I knew I could go into an interview, and later talking to those guys, I had a good interview, and it went well with Boston. And when they were coming to that was where I was really hoping, and it worked out. I didn't have too much disappointment that day, even though I was 135th. I was happy. And from there, went back to junior and had a bad year after that. Actually, in junior, had a bad year up in the OHL. Again, nothing too exciting, but I came back for that training camp. I got traded in the OHL, came back for my 19-year-old training camp, which is basically my second year. I wasn't going to stay pro. I was still going back to junior, but I had a good camp, and my game was coming together. I was getting a little bigger, a little stronger, and I had a good camp, and I was able to stay a long time here with Pat Burns as a coach, and the guys were here. I was a pro, and I was going to play exhibition games, and it gave me a lot of confidence. Went back to junior and essentially tore it up, and that was the turning point for me as being a 19, 20-year-old. I was able to go back to Ontario Hockey League. I won MVP of the league, which was the first time a goalie had done that in like 55 years. Wow. CHL goalie, and that allowed me to sign that contract. And again, you have to do a lot in junior hockey to get an NHL contract. There's so many guys that are fighting for it. You have to make a name at that point, and I was lucky enough for the timing to fall in my way.
So I think Bruins fans have been lucky over the last couple of years to have the same goalie, or you say Tuukka Rask, you say Tim Thomas, and it's like, oh, who's before that? You know what I mean? And you replaced Byron Dafoe. This is what I remember. So this is off the cuff. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think you replaced Byron Dafoe. You got a taste of the NHL. And then I think the next year you played maybe 11 or so games. But it was the next year where you had your breakout season, and the Bruins second in the East and Calder Trophy winner.
Precisely, yeah. So yeah. Oh, look at that one. Sharp tux right there. That's an old school tux.
Wait, where's the trophy again? I think you told me once.
Yeah, my little guy's got it up in his bedroom. It's like mini sticks, Stanley Cup.
Look at that, though. Huh? Look at the hair.
Oh, man.
The suit.
They don't wear those tuxes anymore. They got much more color. Oh, what style. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good photo. Yeah, it's right on Google Images there. But
yeah.
just talk about that, though. Like, again, you got a taste of the NHL. I mean, in Providence, was it you and Tim Thomas? Like,
yeah.
So you guys were sharing time, essentially. Defoe was in the NHL, and you would get a taste every once in a while. And when you got that taste, you performed very well.
Yeah, the real funny story is the first time when I was 20. So again, I finished that junior year, came to camp. I'm going to be a pro. I'm going to be in Providence. One of the last few days of training camp, and Johnny Graham on a Saturday night in the city steps off a curb and breaks his ankle, and he was going to be the backup. And so I didn't go home real early that night, but I went home earlier than everyone else. So I showed up on Monday, and I was the second goalie on the depth chart. All of a sudden I'm going on, the road trips, and I'm there in the NHL on opening night as a 20-year-old, which, essentially a year and a half earlier, I was, struggling in junior hockey. So what a thrill, what a dream. And then Byron Dafoe goes down and he tears his hamstring in the third game of the season. So now I'm out on the ice in the Philly Spectrum against John LeClaire and Eric Lindros, and these guys are like, holy smokes, how did this happen? And I got to play my first NHL game on the Columbus Day matinee against the Florida
That's
Panthers.
Right.
And I'm basically shitting my pants all the way into the arena and trying to eat a pancake on Route 1 on the way down there, like no idea what I'm doing, no idea where I'm going to eat. But I remember, I'm sure it was an IHOP or something. On Route 1, I stopped in. I couldn't even eat. I was scared shitless. So
wow. But I mean, think about that though. Like, these things happen, and when you're a goaltender, you have to be ready. And I don't know. I just think about that, like the name Tim Thomas. Like, you guys are like the next guys up after Dafoe, and you mentioned the other fellow who hurt his John Graham, right?
Yeah.
But like, you guys are the next guys in line, and I don't know. You got your shot, but what was it? Were they just sticking with Dafoe for a period of time? And
Mike Keane was there. I was still young. I needed to go play. I couldn't be like, I wasn't ready to be a guy at 20. So to your point, like what we just talked, I went back to the minors, and you get a wake up call pretty quickly when you're down there. You realize how far away you actually are. We just talked about timing and how quick it can happen, but it can also feel like you're 100 miles away, even though you're only 40 down there in Providence. So that year it was Timmy and I. Timmy and I were playing in Providence, and we were both getting called up oppositely. I went up finally at the end of the year. I was playing really well, and I'd figured it out down there. I came up to Boston, and I was there. I knew I belonged, and I knew I was there. I ended up getting hurt in LA. Someone fell on me in overtime, and I blew my groin out for the last month and a half of the season. So I was in Boston that whole time, and then I got healthy for the playoffs in Providence and had a great playoff in Providence, and that's when I knew. Timmy was gone at that point. He went back to Europe, and I knew I was in that slot when they and they brought in Felix Potvin, and I knew it was going to be the older veteran Felix Potvin and myself, and I actually really, really had a chance to make it and to have a career. And that's when it really set in. I stayed here all summer, worked out with John Whitesides in Wilmington every single day. Just the two of us, got big, got strong, and again, knew I was ready for that year. I never would have expected to win Rookie of the Year, to win 29 games and have the year I did, but I knew I was going to be an NHLer that year.
So, I mean, obviously the team was good. Like, the team was loaded. What is your thoughts on goalies and their mentality? You always hear things about goalies. Oh, that guy's a little odd, or people say that about offensive linemen in football. Like, oh, that guy's got a little screw loose. Like, you're a smart dude, man. Like, when you play a lot, like, you don't even want to play goalie anymore. But like back then, did goalies share things? Like, obviously I know you and Tim Thomas were friends. Was Felix Potvin, like, was he a guy that showed you pointers and taught you things? Like, is it true about a goalie mentality, and do you guys really do share things to get better?
No, for the most part, 95% of the time that tandem's pretty tight, and there is collaboration, and both guys know the role, whatever that role is, and they're going to support each other in that role. Whether you're the starter and the backup goes in, you want him to win. It helps you, it helps the team, helps him, and oppositely. And Felix was amazing like that. Especially now looking back as a veteran guy, I'm sure he thought he was coming in, no problem. There's just this rookie coming up that I'm going to take the job and I'll play a bunch of games. And it didn't go that way for Felix, but he never let me feel that way. He was always very great with me. He always helped and tried to steer me through some of the things I was going through. So Felix was awesome. Certainly goaltenders back in the day were a little more screwy than I think they are now. I think guys are a little more normal. I think their equipment's changed. I think that the people that are goalies, they're more athletes now. Back in the day, it was, the guy you just stuck in there who couldn't skate. And that's changed in a major way the last 20 years. But prior to that, like right around that 2000 time, you'd have the goalies that you wouldn't talk to on game day, that you just wouldn't be involved at all, just very separate from the team. Where I think now, and at the back end of my career, I noticed where the young guys just, hey, I want to play soccer with everybody else before the game. I don't want to be on my own just listening to my music.
So you mentioned the 03-04 year, you're the Calder Trophy winner, and then the NHL lockout happens. Like, what was your feeling? Like, what you couldn't, what could, because I know, like, you tried to play in the minors, right, to stay healthy, and it didn't, like explain that, because the lockout really did set you back.
Yeah, it sucked. It sucked. And I tried to look at the positives at the time. At least I've made it, and at least I'm in the NHL, and it could have happened a year later. And I tried to talk myself into that, but it's easier for me to say now, way back when, that it was really bad timing for me. It really did suck, and I was finding my groove. I finally was the first time I wasn't going to have to go to training camp fighting for a job. I was going to be able to be in Boston and train all summer and get ready for the season differently, like as a real NHLer. And it didn't happen. It was far from that. So I went to Finland just after Christmas when I realized we weren't playing. I held out hope, but there was no way we were ever going to get a deal done. And went to Finland, had fun. It was a great experience. First time in Europe, first time playing over there. So I gained a lot of experience that way, but But obviously, in hindsight, I lost a shitload of money for sitting out that season and a lot of momentum in my career.
Yeah.
Because next year, it bled into the summer the next year as well. And I didn't have a contract for the next year. So then I ended up holding out, trying to get a little bit more money because the deals were terrible. And, it just all compounded. And I was only 24 still. So I didn't really have enough maturity to really like dig in and go day to day with it. I was really forward thinking, and I need to get back. And I put so much pressure on myself when I did come back that all of those things compounded on me throughout that whole lockout. And looking back, it's easy to look at that and say, I got a shit deal, but I also could have prepared a little better or done differently. But again, I was 24.
But the lockout, and you mentioned it, man, like the momentum and everything like that. The Bruins at times weren't spending money either.
Not back then. No.
I mean, now it's easy. Now it's easy to say they spend to the salary cap because there's a cap. But then bringing in free agents or paying guys, like they'd go to arbitration with Ray Bork. You know what I'm saying? So
no, that's right. And that's what it was, and we all knew that, and we knew after that lockout. I mean, no one had a contract at the end of that lockout. I think there was one guy maybe PJ had a deal through that lockout, so we knew it was getting blown up, and we knew it was going to be chaos when we all came back. And then to add to that chaos, Joe Thornton gets traded 6 weeks into the season. So then the wheels came off.
and as like sports radio and media, the Bruins at that point became, hey, let's do a hockey minute instead of, really talking about the Bruins. And I know 05, 06, obviously that year struggled. Was it Tim Thomas who took over from there?
Yeah, Hanu was here, and again, compounding. I blew, my leg got messed up right when I was kind of figuring it out again, like middle of the season, January, and that never got better the rest of the year. So I got hurt. There was a bunch of waiver issues. They didn't have goalies. I tried to play. That didn't work. And then Timmy came up, and Timmy was great when he came up. Even on a bad team, he played fantastic. And that was, with him and Hanu Toivonen, that was kind of the writing on the wall for me.
So you get traded to Toronto, and it's for Tuukka Rask. You didn't have any control of where you wanted to go? Was it essentially, and obviously the return was great. You had a good first year in Toronto. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but it's Toronto. But what was that transition like for you? You're in Boston. You made your way up. You were the Calder Trophy winner, and now you're getting traded for this young prospect that people were really upset about in Toronto.
Yeah, kind of. They're certainly more upset now, but at the time they had another prospect, a Canadian kid, that if they had traded him instead of Tuukka, they would have been anarchy down up there. He was kind of Canada's golden boy at that time. So they had two first rounders in the pipeline, and it was Tuukka that came here. Fortunately for him, he got out of Toronto. So it's but for me at that point, I was over the moon. I was going to basically my hometown. I was, I'm only 100 miles from there. All my friends lived in Toronto, and it was pretty cool to be able to play on Hockey Night in Canada every single night. And that first year went pretty well. I played a ton of games and won a lot of games, and we ended up missing out on the playoffs and on the shootout on the last day. And that hurt a lot. It hurt a lot because we knew we had a pretty good team. If we had got in, we could have made some noise, but it was just important to get in the playoffs, especially in that market.
Yeah. A damn shootout, right?
Yeah.
It's all down on a damn shootout. I'm out on shootouts, by the way.
Sunday afternoon special. We had one Saturday night. All we needed was the Devils to win, and it didn't happen. So it hurt a lot. It stung a lot. And then the next year I sucked, and we sucked again. And that was the end of the Toronto experiment. And now I'm obviously forever linked with the way Tuukka's career has gone and his, the way the Bruins have played for the last 12 years, and with Claude Julien and Zdeno and Patrice, and just the run they've been on. I'm connected to that, but certainly at the time it was a good deal for me.
So quickly, I have a thought on that.
Yeah.
If you were the goalie for the Bruins during the Claude era and they packed it in, you would have been nothing would have stopped you. Like, I feel like, and this is no offense to Tim Thomas or whoever else played, but the way that they packed it in defensively, it made things easier for the goaltender.
No, there's no question, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'd still be playing. I'm not going to sit here and say I'd have Vezina trophies or Conn Smythe trophies. I believe I had the talent, the ability to do that, but whether it worked out, it's a whole nother question. Yeah. But the point is if you look at everybody who's been a goaltender, and let's leave Tuukka and Timmy out of the equation. We'll look at Chad Johnson's and Anton Hudobin's and Manny Fernandez's, and you go right down the list. Johan Gustafsson, everybody's succeeded here, and they've all catapulted onto better jobs because of the way this team plays. And we see it every night. They're pros, their system's intact, and it's been intact for 12 years. And Zdeno Chara's the best defenseman of this generation. And not only overall, but defensively, it's not even close. You could argue this guy's as good as anybody defensively in the entire history of the National Hockey League. We watched 2011. The way he shut those Twins down is something that I cannot explain how impressive it was. I played with the Twins. I played on that team the year before, and I know how good they were offensively. And for them to be snuffed out the way they were, it is amazing to me. It still is amazing watching it the past couple of weeks. So yes, in hindsight, if we could draw it all back, and I would have done everything to stay if I had known that was going to come down the line.
Yeah, if you do, right? I mean,
I'd be still living in the burbs. I'd just be hanging out right now. I'd be doing this with you.
Exactly.
And, hanging out on the bench like Yarrow Halak. You know what I mean? Like I'd still be doing it. So
it's true, and I swear by that. If we could pack him in, oh well. They got Tuukka Rask. Listen, he's a polarizing figure, and I want to ask you about him quickly. Just to wrap a couple of things up, I know you played in Toronto, which I love the mask.
Yes.
By the way, that got ranked I think a top 5 mask of all time.
There's a raging Twitter debate right now. I keep getting somehow involved in it. People are mad at me because yes, the mask is getting some play up there right now, and everyone just says how much I suck that the mask shouldn't count.
Colorado, dude, you had a good run. Right? Wouldn't you start 9-1 at the beginning of the year? And it's like, whoa, the Razors back.
Yeah, that was such a great start. Our team was really playing well. And I didn't get a lot of love. They weren't playing me very much, but whenever I played, I won. And I started liking hockey again and started feeling good. And then the wheels came off at the end of that season as well. And I wasn't able to keep up with our team. And it was like probably the worst second half of a play. I think we were in the playoffs at the All-Star break, and we ended up last place. Like it might have been the worst tank job in the history of the NHL. And because it was in Denver, no one really cared. But I look back on it a few months ago, and I was like, wow, that was so bad. I remember it being painful, but I didn't think about it. I think it was we won literally 5 games of the last 40. It was bananas.
Shit.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. And but then I got to go to Vancouver from there, and that was
I was going to say, you got your 100th win.
Yeah,
in Vancouver, you got to play with that team. So you played with the Twins, and you think that really was a good team?
Oh,
like skilled.
Yeah, they were much better than that 11 Bruins team on paper. That team with Kessler and Burrows and the Twins and Ehrhoff on the back end, Luongo and net. They were stacked and they were primed. We lost to Chicago the year before. In the third round, they went on to win the Stanley Cup that year, but we were right there with them, and I knew that next season they were going to run the table, which they did all the way till Game 7 against the Bruins.
That's right, and then you wrapped up your career in Dallas.
Yeah,
what was that like? Just because I know you played overseas for a little bit after that, but did you know this was going to be the end, or do you think you were going to stick around as a backup for years? And his guys are doing it, right? They make a living being a backup, and maybe they signed that 1-year deal, but they get paid pretty well. Did you think this was it? Because I know you signed a 2-year deal, I think, in Dallas.
Yeah, I was there both years, and it was I was getting 33, and you go through the careers of most guys. If they play early as starters, it's hard to keep that. Up, and the guys like Lundqvist and Tuukka, to be able to do it as long as they have I can't explain how hard it is mentally and how much sacrifice there is to put into that. And a lot of times you'll see the 33-year-old guy that he's the one who kind of gets out early. And I was that guy. I would have been happy to be a backup there, but at the same time, I just didn't have enough passion to be a backup. There's guys that have that passion to play 10 games a season when they're 38 years old. And I just didn't have enough of that. Again, looking back, I was giving it everything I had at the time, but it just wasn't, it didn't mean as much to me, I think, because I had success earlier and I knew what it was like to be a starter. It just was never the same to not be that guy. And at the end of the day, I more than anything, I was just burnt out. And that's why I ended up going to Europe at the end.
So a couple of things I wanted to bring up here. So one, I always bust balls about the old Zamboni commercial.
Yes.
But you got to tell the listeners the story about this. And just real quick, so Boston Bruins plates, people have them, and they were making like a big pitch about it. The big dig was happening at the time, and they put a Zamboni out on the Zachem. And it's, look at this guy to the left here. Who is that guy right there? But tell everybody about the commercial, and I know you guys had some success with it as well.
Oh man, it's incredible that this is what it is, at the time. So the big thing is, the reason why Patrice and I are on that Zamboni is this was shot because of the fact we needed to go up on the bridge. This was shot at 7:00 a.m. on a Sunday morning of St. Patty's Day parade after a game Saturday night. So there's no way any veteran is getting on that Zamboni at 7 a.m. So it falls to us. And Patrice and I, we had no choice. All right, we're doing this. Okay. We have to get up. We drive out to Brookline in the morning. No idea what's going on. They're like, yeah, you have to drive the Zamboni. I'm like, what? You're kidding me. I'm driving the Zamboni. And then sure enough, I get on. We got our lines and we're just stumbling through it, but we get through it, and then we end up on this bridge, and we're driving. There's like a state police escort for us up on the bridge, and I can only imagine. It's so funny now, in looking back at how this actually happened, how it pulled off, and how many mass Bruins plates there are on the road now. I know I see them nonstop, and that was that's what we started doing. We started doing that, and we won an Emmy for that, which is the best thing ever.
Where's that? Is that hanging around somewhere?
That's at my parents' house. I actually was gonna have them bring it down, but they can't cross the border right now. But I need it because it would have been perfect. I would have had it right here, just busting everybody's balls that I have an Emmy.
Hey Dale, I got an Emmy, buddy. Jaffe, here's my Emmy, man.
Exactly.
The funniest thing about it is people love your Razor. They think you're the man. But yeah, Josh told Patrice did need subtitles, it sounds like, because he was like, nice plates, man, huh? I watched it before you came on. I'm like, how bad is this? But how good is this?
Oh, it is awesome now. It is so awesome now. It really is.
I can't stop. It's like I always think about it. I can't help but always bring it up. It will follow you forever, but it's legendary, man.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing to follow. I'm pumped. Patrice turned out to be a Hall of Famer because this gets replayed a lot more now. And I mean, the fact that Patrice does not have an accent now when he speaks is more incredible than what his actual hockey career is. Especially when you watch that video.
I still can't believe how effective he is, though. There's been all this talk about Bergeron and two-way player. Do you think he could have just been an offensive player and not cared about defense and put up tremendous numbers? Or do you think it was just like you couldn't settle being a backup? You just couldn't do it. But do you think he could have settled and just been a scorer, or is he always a two-way player?
No, this is what he was, right? And this is why, initially he made it. Because the reality is he didn't have a great shot. He didn't, skate really fast. So he wasn't going to stand out by just scoring. He stood out from day one by being as smart as he is out on the ice and being the pro he is on the ice and playing a 200-foot game. And all of this skill, even watching 2011, you recognize that he wasn't in a lot of, he scored obviously 2 goals in Game 7, but the power play wasn't amazing. Frankly, it sucked. And it wasn't like a run and gun. Like Patrice was out there killing penalties. He was out there against that first line. He wasn't relied to be a scorer in 2011, nearly the way he is now. And fast forward all the way to 2020. So I think the big thing with all of that, though, too, is the way the game's changed has certainly helped Patrice. And because he's so smart, he can get around the ice. And now he doesn't need to worry about being hit. He doesn't need to worry about being slashed or hooked, he can play his game and find those holes so much easier than he could when he first started in 2004. So I think a lot of that is just the way the game's opened up to allow a guy like Patrice or Sidney Crosby. You see these guys, or Alex Ovechkin, Ovi's got the shot and Sid's got the big legs and Patrice has got his ability to find holes. But the reality is the game's opened up for those guys and they're just smarter. They're flat out smarter than everybody else out on the ice. And that allows them to now pick up that productivity the way they are at the end of their careers.
Do you think he'll be known more for being a two-way player, or what I'm starting to see now is maybe he can hang around for a few more years and elevate the play of a David Pastrnak, right? Like, is he making David Pastrnak better? Is that what you're seeing on the ice?
No question. And he makes Brad Marchand better. And again, I'm not slighting those two guys either, because they'd be doing this without Patrice. There's no question. They would be scoring this way. But the way three of them complement each other, and you'll always see Patrice above the puck. It allows Brad, it allows David to go on the offense. They can do crazy stuff down low. They can try and make backhand behind the back passes that no one else in the league's making, and certainly not connecting. But they're allowed to do that because Patrice is out there and he's that safety valve. That all being said, I think at the end of all this, Patrice's numbers are going to keep going up. He's going to continue to play. He's going to continue to produce numbers. And with that longevity comes moving up that, especially the Boston Bruin franchise leaders. He's going to climb that ladder pretty quickly once we get back here, because they're going to be able to put points up. And at the end of it, I think we're going to talk about him being a scorer and probably forget a little bit more about 2004 to 2012.
Just sticking with Pastrnak there, is there anyone you can compare him to? The start that he's had, the almost 40 goal seasons, like to me, like every night it's up. David Pastrnak scored a goal. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect it from him, but he really is like a sniper, man.
He's a sniper. He's flat out, and so the only guy is Ovechkin in the last 20 years, which is hybrid.
Wow.
I think Ovi's going to pass Wayne. Side, this hurts. If we don't play for a year and a half like that, that takes out some of that longevity, but he's right there. And the reason I say it, and I'm not just like throwing it out there, because the reason I say it is the way that David's able to, one, score on the wing. There's not many guys that blow it past goalies nowadays. There's two guys in the league. You watch it every night. Ovi and Pastrnak score once a week coming down the wing and taking a slap shot. And you're like, that no one else does that. Connor McDavid's flying down them. He's not taking, no one's beating these guys clean the way those two guys do. That is timeless. David, the way his release is, the way he gets his shot off, the way he understands angles is special. And number two, he's figuring out how to score other ways. He's going into the dirtier areas. He's getting in, and he plays with two guys that are able to get him the puck consistently.
I don't want to bring up Game 7 again. Maybe it was the physicality, but do you think he could ever be what Ovi is as far as that kind of physical player?
Yeah. Well, no, he's not. I mean, Ovi's an absolute tank. It might say 220 in the programs. He's 250 pounds of Russian bear muscle, and he can run everybody over. He's right there strength wise with Zdeno. It would be crazy what his raw power is. And David doesn't have that. He's a little slighter. He's never going to be a physical guy where you see when Ovi gets out on the ice that first game of the playoffs and he's running everybody over. That's never in David's game. But I think certainly last year in the playoffs, I think even through this year, he's got a target on his back now, and he's proven this year that he can fight through it, and he does fight through it, and he's able to still play that little, he can take the physicality. That's going to be for David, as long as he can handle the physicality, similar to Patrice. If he can handle the physicality, he's going to have success. And I think last year too, that wrist injury that David had, probably flew under the radar a little bit at the end of the day. I know he scored goals and he had a couple good games, but overall he wasn't able to get that shot off the way he is right now. And I think a lot of that is from that injury he had last year.
I think we're still trying to find out how he got that injury.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. I don't know.
We're still trying in the media, What happened? Was it Uber? What happened there? Just a couple more Bruins questions, and then we'll have some fun. The future of Torrey Krug. He says he wants to stay here. He's a somewhat of a weird situation when it comes to a contract and type of player. But do you think the Bruins will find it to keep him around. I know Grizzlick's, I don't want to say he's just that type of guy that's just like him. There's no score that's like him as far as defenseman goes, but you probably talked to him. Do you think he wants to stay here, and do you think the Bruins can try to make it work?
I certainly think he wants to stay here. I think he's played long enough to recognize the culture here and how special it is. And to be honest, it's easier to play here right now than most other teams because everybody's bought in. There's discipline. You have to work hard every day, but the reality is there's no drama. There's no bullshit here. You come to work, you get it done, and you go and win hockey games. So, and most places it's not like that. There's all kinds of bullshit going on at all the other teams.
Yeah.
So
coaches, management,
and people getting
prospects.
Yes, exactly. It's a fiasco in a lot of places. So in that respect, I think he wants to stay. I think it gets really difficult now with salary cap issues. And there you go. This is throwing a huge monkey wrench into finances in the National Hockey League. And even if they come back and play without fans, there's going to be massive losses. I don't know. The Canadian dollar, which this doesn't get brought up very much. The Canadian teams, the 6 teams, are essentially 30% of revenue in the National Hockey League. Okay, so we have 30% of revenue right here. The Canadian dollar's lost 15% of revenue. So that 30% drops down to 26%, 25% right off the top of salaries, okay, off of hockey-related revenue. So that's a massive number as well when you start breaking down 4 or 5% of $5-6 billion. Each team's losing a lot of money, and that's going to come off that salary cap. So it'll be very interesting to see what they come up with. If they keep the cap at 81.5, that's going to allow them to possibly find a way to sign Krug. But the Players Association is going to have a major issue because that's going to mean 35% escrow. So these teams are going to go out and spend $7 million on a defenseman like Torrey Krug, but everybody else on the team is going to get hit 35% because of that. Ooh. So the only, you're either going to keep the cap at 81 or you're going to roll it back to 70. Everyone's going to lose money, but the free agent guys are going to have nowhere to play. So there's a lot of balls in the air. This reminds me a lot, salary cap wise, of 05, 06, of what we already talked about, is when that salary cap came into place. The numbers were really low and the salaries were really high, and they needed to fit everybody in. And I feel like if that doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen the year after. So a guy like signing a 7-year, $8 million deal, you have to be really sure you can make the numbers work a year and a half from now. So I think that everybody wants Torrey here. I think Torrey wants to be here. I think it all lines up, but I am very curious to see the magic that they can work. And they've done it. The Bruins organization has done a great job getting these guys all under that number, but this one's going to be real dicey just because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and my only thing with him is, don't you feel like they can find the offensive output from somewhere though? Like, I know he's top 5 in points and scoring, whatever. But like, shouldn't someone else be able to rise to the occasion and put up those kind of numbers?
Well, that's right, and that's what it comes down. Is it worth? Is he going to be the highest paid player on the Bruins? He can't
be. They're not going to pay anybody more than Bergeron and Krejci at this point.
That's right. And is some other team going to give him $2 million more a year beyond that? And that that's hard to turn down when you're not. You're not a rocket science. You're not working when you're 50 years old as a hockey player. This is your time to make dough, and those are tough decisions to make when you want to stay somewhere. But that's it. That's the trade-off the Bruins are going to have. Do they think that someone can step in and give 50% of productivity, 60, 70% of that productivity, and can they find it elsewhere at a much less number? And that's why the organization has been good at that, because they've recognized what they need and what they want to keep.
All right, you're not going to get in trouble for anything you say on this podcast, okay? So
sure.
I just want to let you know that off the bat.
On the internet goes away, right?
That's right. Okay, Tuukka Rask.
Yeah,
he recently said that he would retire at the end of his contract.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just the radio guy. Okay, he's blown a 3-0 series lead. He's lost. Gave up a 2-goal lead in a Game 7. He's lost a Game 7. He one time couldn't play in a game to make the playoffs against Ottawa one year because he got sick. I mean, it just sometimes his some of the things he says just don't rub people the right way.
Yep.
Radio guy talking here, trying to stir the pot. Okay.
Yeah.
You think he's a great goalie? Like, you think he's probably the best goalie they ever had? And my whole thing is that somebody they can bank on? Like, is this the guy that's going to win them a championship? Because it hasn't happened. And maybe this was the year, right? Maybe they needed to switch goalies back and forth and give them the time. So maybe I'm not fair giving them enough, saying that maybe this could have been the year. But are these the slights that we'll always think of when it comes to Tuukka Rask? And you being a former goaltender, not because you were traded for the guy, but will that forever be the slight on Tuukka? And if they don't finish this season, could people lean on that and say, oh, well, maybe they could have won it that year?
Well, the reality is, that's going to be, if he doesn't win, that's always going to be the slight. And I think, to your point, everyone's made up their mind on Tuukka. Everyone made up their mind, I think, in 2013, to be honest. I can't imagine too many people have changed their perception in the last 4 or 5 years of Tuukka, even though he went to Game 7 last year. I will say, watching 2013, you watch that game, they showed it a bunch of times, them losing that Game 6. And I didn't watch much of that at that time. I was playing, and I was on vacation. I wasn't really paying attention. I watched his game then compared to now, and it's not even close. He is so much better right now, the way he played this season compared to that 2013 video. And he was great then. He stole the series against Pittsburgh, but I mean, like, technically and the way he is so much calmer. You see the saves he makes now. He feels so confident about his game. So I think the verdict's still out. I think he can win. We've seen a lot of goalies not win for a long time, and then they win, and then they're lock Hall of Famers. So he's gone to Game 6. He's gone to Game 7. He's been so close that I think it's hard and it's not fair. Believe me, it is not fair to say that the guy can't win the big game when he's gotten that close, because he has won big games. But it is reality in this town that that's what is going to be said about him until he wins. And even when he wins, it's probably going to be similar that, he's still not Timmy. He's going to live in that shadow of the way Timmy played for 3 weeks in June in 2011. And right or wrong, that's Tuukka's reality. And I think he's at peace with it. I think he's more at peace now than he was in 2013. I think that would have weighed on him at that time. But now I think he's past that, and he's just playing. And to your point of sometimes what he says and how I think he's honest. I think he says what he feels, and he doesn't really buy into the cliche. I don't think he buys into trying to make the reporter feel good or try and make a good soundbite. It comes out, and I think that's where some of this retirement thing did. I talked about when you're 33, 34, it gets hard to play. And Tuukka's played a lot of hockey games since the age of 22, and he was a stud first rounder playing big games when he was 16. So it starts to wear on you a little bit. And I think he was being honest in saying that it could be it. And I obviously, you never want to really say that word because it gets big buzz. You can't say the R word while you're playing, especially at the level Tuukka is. And he walked it back. And I think he realized that he's better off just keeping that to himself.
So I only compare it to, like, when Josh Beckett was here. Beckett would always talk about, I get 2 days off a week or whatever like that. And it just didn't go over well, like, because he was golfing all the time. It's like, dude, do you want to work out and pitch, or do you want to golf? And I just feel like with Tuukka sometimes it's about, shit, we'll get him next time. Or, I went out there, gave you my 60 minutes or whatever, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's just, like, sometimes doesn't come off well.
It doesn't come off well. You have to, and I get it. But I think I look at it this way and I get it. There's some guys that do that. And there's other guys in the league that talk a major game to the media, go on, and they're playing golf 4 times a week. They're not putting any effort in, but they'll go out in the game and they'll skate around and forecheck, and then they'll come in. Oh, I gave it everything I had. The whole cliche to the media loves them. Oh, this guy's the best. And all the other guys in the locker room are like, what is this? Who is this guy kidding in here? Mm-hmm. So I think we can look at the fact that if Tuukka wasn't respected by his teammates, he wouldn't be here for the last 12 years. We've seen a lot of guys come through this locker room that Zdeno, Patrice, these guys, they didn't fit in. Cam Neely, right from the very top, they got rid of these guys real quick when they had attitude problems or they had lack of work ethic or they had issues. Tuukka's been here through all of that, and they love Tuukka. So I think that's something that I look at more so than maybe like that media spot where he's like, just one of those nights I didn't play good. And, but it is that simple sometimes. It really is. I didn't have it tonight. And not everyone wants to hear that, but but I think that's what he does sometimes.
Finally, Tim Thomas, you had a relationship with the guy. He won a championship, played another year, and disappeared. Things were talked about him. He might have said some things that were critical. People took critical. He came back though recently and mentioned that he had some health issues. He's been dealing with a lot of things, and I feel like a jerk after it all. Like, here I am, like, oh, this guy went to his bunker and things happen, and now I feel like a jerk. Like, I'm like, oh, well, maybe the guy really, like, how many pucks went to the head? Like, the guy played in the minor leagues forever, would play here, and had that great run that you talk about, and like, I don't know, just now I kind of like felt for the guy for a minute here, and I don't know. I mean, you know him well. Just like, can you tell people what you know about Tim Thomas and maybe what you thought about his comments?
Yeah, so I will preface though. I don't know. I haven't talked to Timmy in 15 years, so I don't. I knew him. We were teammates in 2003, somewhere in there, and so I don't know him that well, and I don't know what he's been doing and what happened, why he left, all of that stuff. I'm kind of out of that loop. I will say that certainly, a lot of guys have issues, especially when they're done or when they're finishing up, and whether it's head or emotional issues, physical issues, just getting out of the game. And we saw the competitor Timmy was, and you saw that every night. And and then you go to having to deal with the president issue. That was a major thing, and that can take its toll. And I'm sure he not only got hockey criticism, he got national, like he was in the middle of a big deal. And again, that's no one's fault but his, and that's on him. But there's a lot of that stuff that would make you want to go away, I think. And I think the longer you stay away, the harder it is to even show up and come back to it.
The flip side of that is, I think his brand is elevated as a goaltender. Like, we just watch how many chances Tuukka's had. It's like, whoa, this guy did it. He couldn't, and I think it's really elevated him.
Well, no, and it's a little bit of the fact he went away. So no one really watched him disintegrate or get worse. Like, he went to Florida and Dallas. He went to all these other places and it didn't really work out there. But if he had stayed in Boston and it just got worse and worse and worse, everyone would have thought about that. Yeah. Whereas really it just ended because he didn't go to the White House, right? Yeah. Like, that's kind of the narrative. If you want to spin it, if you're a Timmy guy, you never got to really see him on the downside. Like he was in these other places. So certainly it's added to the mythology a little bit, I think, over the years of him being just kind of gone. And it's like nostalgia or eccentric. He's gone, but he did this and what it would have been if he had kept going, or.
All right. So one last thing, and then we'll have some fun. I watched the Drew Bledsoe E60 this week. And I got the feels, like, Bledsoe did this E60, and essentially, like, they showed in 2001 he lost his job, and he kept saying, "That's my job. It's my job. It's my job." And finally, he just bought in, like, all right, Tom's the guy or whatever. And then he goes to Buffalo, has a great year, gets replaced by JP Lossman, leaves, goes to Dallas, does well, gets replaced by Tony Romo, and I'm like, wow, this guy was actually on a Hall of Fame career. And kept getting replaced by this guy and that guy. But it was Brady that had all the success. Mm-hmm. Then I think of Nomar Garciaparra, who was here, right? And, like, Mo Vaughn was on his side or whatever and had all this great success. The contract thing came up. Jeter jumped into the stands. He didn't play. They trade him. They win the championship and have success. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm having Andrew Raycroft on this week. And I'm like, there's a comparison here. And I'm like, you passed the torch, man. Like, you're in that company. You're with Drew Bledsoe and Nomar Garciaparra as guys who passed the torch to the Tim Thomas and the Tuukka Rask of the world.
Yeah, Tuukka's kept me relevant in certain ways in respect to that, right? And I'm connected to that. And for me, it's a great thing. My kids see Tuukka play so great, and they think that I was that good because I got traded for him. So it's like, yeah, that's what I used to do a long time ago. Guys.
I think we need a Razor E60 series.
Yeah, we could really go down the rabbit hole on that one. That'd be.
So, where's Nesson? What are they doing over there these days?
That's the big as the Last Dance. Tell stories, the whole thing.
Speaking of the Last Dance, have you been watching? Are you enjoying it?
yeah, it's can't miss. It's awesome, huh? It's so well done, and most of these things, again, like I like sports, and I try and watch all of these, the 30 for 30, like I'm in on it, and a lot of times you know most of that stuff, but I find this is like amazing that we didn't know half of, like I watched and I had no idea any of that stuff. And the Dennis Rodman stuff, you read the book and you know about it, but then there's still random stories that they're telling that no one knew about. So it's amazing TV. They're doing an awesome job. And it's, as a player, I've been in the locker room. I know all of these stories. And a lot of times in these shows, you can tell that it's polished. You can tell that it's bullshit. You can tell that the guy's trying to make himself look good. But you can tell this Last Dance, is real. And gloves are off, and they're telling it how it was. It's really cool.
Yeah, the Scottie Pippen and his like, oh, I wasn't gonna sign. Like they're gonna trade. I still can't believe that Jordan went to Vegas, knocked on Rodman's door, saw something going on in the bed, but Carmen Electra says that she was on the floor with Dennis. So what was going on in the bed?
Oh, would be a fly on that wall when MJ walks in on those 2, 3, 4. How many people were in that room?
And then the other thing is Phil Jackson did acid and was in the Indians. So like, was he watching the Doors movie? Like, was he into the Doors? Like, that's what I want to know.
The one thing about that I thought really interesting is that MJ acted like it was such a hassle for him to go to Vegas and do this. Like, he was a Vegas guy too. Let's be, he didn't just go right to the room and get out of town. He made a stop he was at the back of the baccarat table. Money too.
I'm sure he was. Or he just put like a bunch of money down on black or red, right? Real quick. Hey, I only got a minute. Here we go. Right. I'm sure that definitely happened. Yeah, I'm actually interested to see what happens with that this weekend. And I know we're fairly the same age, so like, watching Jordan and everything, his fight too. Like, dude, he had to go through the Pistons. Obviously lost to the Celtics, then played the Lakers, dude. And it's like, this guy's career, man, he fought. He continued to get better, and that's why I think he's the greatest athlete of our time. Mm-hmm. Just what he had to go through. He had to continue to work out to get better. He didn't need guys to retire. They retired because of him. You know what I mean? And like, still think to this day, I still think he's the greatest athlete of our time. You
watch highlights now of how much of a man's game that NBA was compared to what we watch now. Yeah. And for a guy that was 6'6", which was small back then, to go through what he did it is really impressive, and his toughness cannot be questioned.
And the other thing is, like, this isn't a slight on LeBron. It's just that the game has changed so much that LeBron can be the most dominant player. But when people compare Jordan and LeBron, it's like, nah, dude. Like, Jordan worked out and got stronger and wanted to beat those guys. You left and you went to go play with your buddies to win. That's something he has to live with.
No, he's going to live. And you could also, in his defense, he didn't, he might have been tough enough to play back then. He might have had a different attitude. He might have had, he might have had to fight through it, but the reality is he didn't, and he doesn't. So that makes MJ the best.
So this is something that we call musings. I do it on the weekends over at 98.5 The Sports Hub. We just shoot the breeze about anything that's going on in the world. So we just did the Jordan documentary. What are your thoughts on Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski going to Tampa Bay?
So I'm a Bills fan. So it has been a long 20 years of Tom Brady and whoever else. So there is nobody more excited on my group message than my buddies from back home, who are absolutely rounding the Bills Mafia wagon right now. And just, they're so excited to not have to see Tom Brady. So I will say that, but to see him gone is wild, right? It's going to be absolutely wild to see him playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I never thought I thought it was all smoke and mirrors. I really did. I thought they were going to work it out, but it'll be quite the scene. But certainly as a Bills fan, we're excited. We have a chance actually at winning more than 8 games.
Yes, the Razor is part of Bills Mafia. Yeah. I'm blown away. I mean, we gotta slam you through a table at some point.
Hey, my buddies have season tickets. They live in Toronto. They have season tickets. They're driving down from Toronto 8 times a year, every game. They don't miss.
I'll make a side bet with you. I think the Patriots win the AFC East this year.
Of course they're going to win. The Bills are going to blow it. Of course they are. Allen stinks. Bills are definitely going to blow it. There's no it's going to hurt it's going to hurt so much this year more than it ever has.
Jake Fromm might be the quarterback at some point. Who knows?
Right.
They had a really good draft.
They did.
Did you watch the NFL draft? Are you like a football fan? Do you watch the draft?
I watched it. I wouldn't have watched day 2 like I did this year just because it was on. But yeah, I mean, it was more so circumstances. A lot of times it's playoff hockey at this time, so I'm not, I'll flip over for the first couple picks. But yeah, I watched it this year. There's nothing else on TV, and But if you're gonna, I have no idea who's good or who's bad. My Bills Mafia crew told me the Bills drafted was the best draft.
It was good. Dude,
I'll
give you a name. AJ Epinesa. Dude is awesome.
Love it.
And Zach Moss is a big time. You guys already got running backs though, but he'll be a big back there as well.
I think it's fascinating that Belichick does what he does, and that's what's fun for me watching the Patriots. It's going to be amazing to see him scrape together 10 or 11 wins this year.
See, you're not just a hockey guy. You can talk a little football, right?
Yeah.
You can do it all. All right. How about this? I know you're a golf guy.
Oh yeah.
Are you excited for the Tiger, Manning, Brady, Phil golf off?
Yeah. I mean, Tiger's involved. Anything Tiger's, and I'm over the moon about. I think it's going to be cool. I would rather see it just Tiger, Phil. As much fun as it'll be to watch Peyton and Brady slash it around a little bit out there, I'd still rather see those two guys go at it.
Yeah. And it's fine if you got to go. I know there's kids everywhere and everything like that these days.
I'm a heads up; they don't come yelling.
So quickly, music fan. I know the concerts in 2020 this year. The Rage Against the Machine, the Foo Fighters. It was all supposed to happen. It was supposed to be great, and then sadness. I don't know. I actually don't think it's been canceled yet, but I'm pretty sure it will.
That's the best part. So I talked to you about it already. We're turning 40 this year. So all my buddies are coming down. Bills Mafia was coming down, Boston calling, and we're so pumped. Like, this is going to be the best couple nights at Encore, the whole thing. And now we're out. So yeah, I'm as disappointed about not seeing any concerts this summer as I am missing sports. There's no question. And concerts are going to be a while, right? Like how are we going to have a concert for a long time? It sucks.
What was that? What were like your pump up songs when you played?
Oh, pump up song. I mean, Rage is right there. Rage was a big deal. Late 90s, early 2000s when it comes to pump up. Pennywise. I loved Pennywise.
Nice.
Him. That was.
What about like Canadian? Like, did you like Nickelback or anything?
Yeah, no, Nickel. No, we don't talk.
no. What about Our Lady Peace was good.
Our Lady Peace. I've seen that. I've gone to as many Our Lady Peace shows as I can. So yeah, Tragically Hip is Canadiana as it gets. We've got Matthew Good. I have lots of Canadian guys, and that was the best part. When I went to Toronto, I milked that so much. I went to every show I could possibly go to. Everyone just hounding guards, let me in. So I took full advantage of the Canadian music scene back then.
That's good. I know your boy Josh. Wondering if you're still looking for.
I am.
I think we all are, man.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we're all. Did you? So I was Alice in Chains is my favorite band.
Okay.
So that '90s era of grunge is it? Post Malone. Maybe your kids listen to Post Malone.
Yeah, and they got Drake. I know you're a Drake guy.
I like Drake.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a Drake fan. People make fun of me for it.
No,
but did you see Post Malone did a bunch of Nirvana covers this week?
I did.
You got to check it out.
Yeah, 100%. I will. Thanks for that.
You'll rock out if that will give you something to do. And finally, you're on Cameo now.
I am. And you know what? I've had fun with it. I was like, I'm not that guy like that. It just feels weird. Like, why would someone want me to send a video? But I've done it, and it's been a lot of fun actually. Especially now when we're around. So it feels like I'm actually interacting with people or having conversations. So I'm on Cameo. Hit me up if you want me to send a birthday wish to somebody or just rip. So the best is I've had a few where I get to rip their buddies. It's like, it's so fun. They tell me exactly what to say and I say it, and it's like just ripping the guy. So that's a lot of fun.
All right, cool. We wrap it up here with quarantine. Stuff you've been doing in quarantine. What's the first thing you'll do once you'll be able to go out?
Oh, I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to the bar. I'm going to saddle up at the bar, Irish pub, and drink Guinness.
So you're a Guinness guy. Yeah, I love Guinness, man.
Yeah.
There's a place in Jamaica.
Only in a tap, so you can't have it in the can right now. So I'm missing, that good pull.
I used to go to this place called Doyle's in Jamaica Plain, man. That was like my spot. They had the best, best Guinness. So I'm a cider guy. I don't know what happened. I just maybe it's like the sweetness. I don't know, but I've really flipped on cider. What are you watching any shows right now or binging any shows?
Yeah, we've kind of we weren't big Netflix, and now we're Netflix. So we're in Ozark right now. I hadn't watched Ozark. We were kind of like on the fence with it forever, and we've been able to binge that, which has been nice. Like we were huge on Money Heist, and that season came out, but it was only one season. So this Ozark, we're through 2 seasons now. So that's on the dial right now, which has been good. But yeah, we've Money Heist was another big one.
Did you like Breaking Bad, or did you ever see Breaking Bad?
I did Breaking Bad when I was in Europe. My family went home at the end of the year. So I was on my own for a full month, and this was 2014, 2015. So I went through all of the Breaking Bads at that time and got really into it. But I haven't looked. I just watched it all once, and that was it.
Better Call Saul.
I know. I haven't done it, but it's worth it, right? It's awesome.
It's so good.
Got it.
I literally do reviews on it here on this this podcast every Tuesday. It's in Schitt's Creek if you want another one.
Yeah, that's Canadian.
Really?
Yeah, they're all Canadian actors. Those are all the Canadians. Yeah, that's a Canadian show.
Well, the mother from Home Alone and Eugene Levy and his kid.
Priceless. Those two are like the funniest comedians ever. She's hilarious. Like the dry, unbelievable. She's amazing.
She is like unbelievable. She actually makes the show.
Yeah,
it's that good. A couple more here for you. What's been your quarantine snack at the moment?
Oh, I've had too many Cape Cod chips in the evening. I'm not a chip guy usually.
Regular or like barbecue?
Yeah, just regular. I've had too many of them, so I tried to get off this week a little bit, but it's still with my beverage consumption as well. It's not ideal.
So what are you doing with when your kids have no school now for like 4 months?
Yeah, it's a grind. Certainly, the kids have Zoom in the mornings with their classes, so that's good. We get to noon, and then outside we're bike riding, we're cruising the neighborhood, running the dog, whatever it is. So when it's not raining, we get through the day. Days like yesterday and today, when it's pouring rain out, it makes it pretty difficult at times around here.
Speaking of Zoom, the Bruins did a Zoom. Everyone loved it. They were all together. Everyone was talking trash to each other. Yeah. Could you get in on that? I know you weren't part of the team there, but you do a lot of the team activities. I saw you at the ping pong event this year. Don't you feel like one of the guys again with all the bees?
Nah. You saw me at the ping pong thing. I was over in the corner hanging with you and all the other guys. I wasn't on the team side. So
you don't feel like you're with the guys though, man?
It's awesome. Believe me, those guys are awesome. They make me feel, when I do those things, I know Patrice, and I know the few of the older guys. So I'm always welcome. But no, it's never the same unless you're actually in the trenches with those guys. There's only those 20 guys that are allowed to be on that Zoom, and I would feel the same way if it was my team and that won it in 2007. I
got 2 more for you. What'd you think of Jack Edwards on the Jordan documentary?
That was amazing, right? I rewound it, and I'm like, and then I Googled Jack to see if he worked at ESPN, because I'm like, it has to be him.
Yeah.
Is it him? So yeah, what a cameo for Jack. That's a major pull.
Yeah, he did the ESPN for years, and then that's how when he ended up on Bruins. What do you think? What do you think of Jack? I mean, it's right. We have Tommy Heinsohn, right? And everyone loves Tommy.
Yep.
There's Remy. People like Remy, but Jack, do you think it's overboard sometimes, or do you just think it's part of the act and part of the?
No, that's Jack. That's Jack. It's not made up. It's what he is. He's extremely the most passionate Bruins fan out there, and he caters to that passion in the fan base. And I think he brings it, and he's sure he said the wrong thing sometimes, that gets picked up nationally and maybe very homerish, but at the same time, that's what he is. And when he's got the call and it's his, who he's pulling for.
You're pretty comfortable with this podcast thing, man. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe maybe Nesson should have the Razor's Edge or the Razor's Pod or something like that. When you first were doing TV, you were, where do I look? Right?
Deer in headlights. Yeah.
And now it's like, dude, you're comfortable. You got this thing down, man.
I'm getting there. I'm working on it. Trying to just let loose. So but it's easier with you. I mean, you're the one pulling all the questions. I just have to answer. I don't have to, it's hard to just come up with stuff on my own. I need to be pushed and pulled, and that's what you're doing.
The easiest thing for me is, dude, just be yourself. Just shoot the breeze. Don't try to change it.
Yeah.
Just be you. Speaking of that, what was your favorite season? And like, I guess I should ask, like, who was like your like biggest influence when it came to hockey?
Yes. Again, I talked to my family and my friends. Certainly are the biggest
athlete though. Like, was there somebody that you? Like,
well, Patrick Wall was that's who I looked at, and so when it comes to when you're a very influenced kid at 12 years old and you can only watch Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night, and that's Patrick Wall. There's no question. And like I said, my parents didn't play hockey, so anything I learned or watched, it was him. But and then when you get to pros, you just have guys that you like to be around, and you try and pick up how they act on a day-to-day basis, more so than I'm looking up to this guy like he's a perfect human being. You realize that none of us are at that point, so that idol stuff goes away. But Patrick was my idol. I looked at that all the time, and if I said an inspiration, I guess that would be it.
And your favorite, was it the Calder Trophy season? Was that your favorite?
Yeah, it has to be. It was, that was a pretty good run. And I had fun afterwards as well, but certainly that if I could bottle those 8-12 months of my life and relive those every year, that'd be a good way to be.
Well, hey, Nesson, get on it.
Yeah.
Let's relive those. Let's get the Razor's Edge pod going.
There you go.
Get going soon. All right. He is Andrew Raycroft, former Bruins goalie. You can check him out on Nesson, hopefully when we get hockey back. Yeah. Razor, it's been fun, man. Appreciate you catching up, going over your story, and shooting the breeze about all things in sports, man. And we'll catch up soon, bud.
You got it, Joe. Good to see you.
I killed an hour and 16 minutes of time.
Amazing. It's already 1:15, and I'm on my downhill to the Friday afternoon special.
And it's Friday, so maybe we could crack a beer in a couple of hours.
It's noon everywhere now.
All right, Andrew. Appreciate it, man. We will catch up soon, bud.
You got it, Joe. Good to see you.
Yeah, so much for your time, man. All right, that is it. I'm going to wrap up the weekend myself. Just Sitting Here, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes. Good job today from Andrew Raycroft. That was fun. It was good to catch up with him. He is fun. He's getting better, man. He's getting better on the air. He should be doing a podcast at some point, I'm telling you. And I know Nesson, he's hired there. I'd love to have him in radio. All right, that's it for me. Just Sitting Here. It's Friday. Everybody enjoy it. We'll talk to you next week. We got a slate next week, too. But you're going to have to stay tuned to find out who the guests are. So we'll talk to you on Monday at noon. I'm Joe Murray, just sitting here.